any of the layers of entrepreneurial acceptance here. We'll make some history here.
There's two interesting questions on the previous conversation you're having and how you met David. During the dot-com era, I was an executive of a firm looking for money for our dot-com company. And one of the things that we were taught early on was to do an elevator speech 30 seconds. What you indicated was 3 minutes, but it was at an airport. And they always told us way back when, you never know when you're going to meet an investor, and be prepared to give that 30-second, they called it the elevator speech. I'm sure you've heard that many times.
I don't walk through an airport, I don't walk through a city block without an antenna very high looking for an entrepreneur. And when you find them, they're what's built this country. They're what's made this country great. I look for them every minute.
Let me now move to the bigger picture. Arizona, according to reports, last year, 2010, received approximately $98 million in venture-backed funding for a number of firms in all of Arizona. That number standing alone looks relatively okay, but when you start comparing it to our neighbors, George, like Colorado, last year had $468 million in venture-backed investments. And even Utah, who's also our neighbor, one of our neighbors, had roughly $145 million. You have Wyoming and Montana that are moving to become investment centers. So it just begs the question, what's missing? I like that. What is missing in Arizona, specifically what's missing in Scottsdale?
First of all, very little. There's very little missing. If there was anything missing, it's simply recognition of what's already here.
Okay.
All we in the business have to do is open up the doors and ask David to walk through. There are many Davids here, maybe not all with the conviction he has, but there are many would be. I envision the day when ArmedZilla is a major company worldwide, when David is tutoring a number of entrepreneurs here. So what's really missing is those of us who have been in the business, and there are many in this valley, open our doors, open our acceptances. Let the entrepreneurs of the community who want to live here, they don't want to go elsewhere.
Right.
I work in Silicon Valley. Everybody in Silicon Valley would like to come here. The weather is wonderful, the people are wonderful. So what it's really going to take is simply open our doors, a little bit of confidence that what's so great about the life here can also be great about the young businesses.
Yeah, very good. And that leads us to this conversation, if entrepreneurs are watching this segment here, they're going to ask themselves, well, you know, how do I meet a George, and how do I prepare for a George? And I know that we had conversation with a firm called Crystal IT just recently, and I was impressed again by several of the questions that you raised, and it was one of those questions about what's missing, you know? And so it seems like entrepreneurs have a myopic vision only because they've been told to go down a certain path. The typical conversation that entrepreneurs have is, do I have the right management team? You know, am I unique? Do I have the technology? Am I scalable? But what else? I mean, what's the key that turns an investor like you and others like Eric Crown, et cetera, and even Jason Hope, who's founder of Jawa. What are the keys here?
I have my 4 W's, first of all. What's missing? Why this? Why now? Why me?
Okay.
If you answer those 4 questions on a 3x5 card, you'll have your business plan. The rest of it is just description.
Okay.
What has to happen here is the young people, especially I've met a number of the people at ASU in the entrepreneurial program. Those people have to simply have enough confidence in their conviction. There is no issue whatsoever in David's case that ArmedZilla will be great. If you spend some time with David, it's incontrovertible. There's no way. If David was starting a full of brush company, I'd be ready to support it. So you first look for those W's, and what the entrepreneurs of this area have to do is just don't be hesitant. Do your research. Find the people like Beechtree Capital that have invested in young entrepreneurs and sit at my doorstep. Don't just call and leave a message. That's not the way it's going to work. In David's case, he got on a plane. I have an office in California. He flew out to California. We sat down for one afternoon. We built a lifelong relationship.
The air park. Recently I had an article that was published in the Scottsdale Republic, my turn piece on the air park and private equity investment, and I mentioned ArmedZilla and Beechtree Capital as well. There are approximately 400 technology firms in the air park. And what's interesting about that is there's yet to be a handle as what kind of a technology firm. Is it a bioscience firm? Is it a software firm? Is it an information technology firm? And I even made those comments to the city. I said, do you folks know who they are that are residing there? Jim Keeley, one of the major brokers in the air park area, I asked him the same thing, and still kind of fuzzy as to who they are. So what would be important if the city was going to get involved in some kind of way to further promote entrepreneurism and investment in the Scottsdale, you ought to know who the assets are, who the folks are that are in the 400 companies. But it's fertile ground. I would imagine once you would find out who they are, what stage of development they're in, that would be a great interest to you. Would that be so, George?
You know, you mentioned Eric and Jason, who we've recently met.
Right.
When I met at one point, when I first started doing business here with the president of ASU and some of the civic leaders,
Yeah.
and I said, there's a place in Menlo Park called Sand Hill Road. The world comes to know Sand Hill Road. It's synonymous with entrepreneurial development. I said, make the airport, make the air park Sand Hill Road.
Right.
And the pride you'll develop in the community, they'll all come there. So as David and I have met a number of the business people